Hi, and welcome back, or welcome if you're just finding my channel. My name is Kelly, and I like to stitch. Uh, it's spring, so it's raining today and overcast, but that's okay because 2 days ago here in New York, it was snowing. So um, it's finally warming up some, and I have a lot of runoff. And if I have a picture of my side yard that I can include in this video, I'll show you what River Bell looks like. And it's not really a river, it's just runoff from the hill. For some people it might be a mountain, but it's really just a hill. That's my property in the back. And when the snow melts, it runs off and it comes down my side yard and runs all the way through my yard out to a culvert and underneath State Route 22. And that's how I know it's spring every year, is that river shows up. And I'm happy to see the river except for all the mud it brings with it. And my clock is going to chime. There we go. Half hour, one chime. So I don't have a lot of stitching to show because I was focused on getting my my part of the round robin project I'm in on cross stitch finish line done, and I had been focusing on my height, and I did get a page finished, but it's a mini, so I have to get like a third of another page done, so I'm not sure I'm going to make that by the 7th. Today's the 4th. It's highly unlikely I'm going to make it. I may try. Anyway, so I focused on my part of the round robin, and this time I'm working on a piece that is Rachel's, and Rachel's from Connecticut. I don't know that she watches my videos, but hi Rachel. This is the pattern that we're working on for Rachel, and Rachel did the posts and the presents underneath, and she did this central motif, and then Tammy did this one, and now it's my turn, and I had this one to do. And Tammy had broken her finger on her dominant hand. She fell, so she wasn't able to get all of this stitch. So I did go back, and there wasn't much left, and I went back and I finished that up. But this is what this piece looks like. First I'll show you the part that the quilts are that we stitched. And that's it right there. And although it doesn't really show up that much on the camera, that was a lot of weight in that middle quilt. And I'm not really good at stitching white, but I did my best. And this is actually a pretty good size piece. I think this is a piece of 28 count even weave, and that's what the whole thing looks like. It is really pretty. So I think that there are 2 more quilts, and it has a couple of more stops to make before it gets back to Rachel, and I will be mailing it out to the next person, Erin. Hi Erin, on the 10th, and then I'll get the next piece in line that I have to work on, and I'm looking forward to it. So that was the primary focus for me for the month of March. I worked on a lot of stuff in March, but it wasn't all stitchy stuff. But that wasn't too bad. So I'll just get that put away. So then the other thing that I worked on as I was coming to a close on my quilt was my 4 lambs. And here, I showed this the last time. It was another new start, and it was out of this Quick and Easy cross stitch book that is old. I bought it, I think, when it first came out, and excuse me, and it was a long time ago. I don't know what the copyright was on this. It says it's Manufactured in the United States of America. Its first printing was 1991. So anyway, let me find a picture. This is a little late. I'm like a week late with my video. I'm sorry. If I'd done this last week, I really wouldn't have had much to show you. I was really kind of having a block. Huh. Okay. Looking for the picture. There it is. Okay. Now this is shown on a towel and a bottle warmer. And that's what it looks like on white Ada. This is the bottle warmer, and then the towel is up there. Okay. Now I did this on a piece of, I don't know if it was 14 or 16 count after shrinkage Ada. And I'm going to show you, because it's a fully finished object, and I put it on this cobalt blue glass jar that I got at AC Moore. I think it was like 50 cents. And but these are the 4 lambs, and it has a yellow border, and it has flowers and grass, and I think it's really sweet. And when I finished it, I sewed it, folded it in half and closed it around a piece of foam, and then I added lace to the ends and some ribbon. I don't know if you can tell, but this is Swiss dot ribbon. Kind of matches the yellow border that's at the top and the bottom of the lambs. And I just tied it closed like a corset, kind of, only it's only a single tie across the back. And I can untie that and put it on something else. I was going to make this a candle, like corset cover, and I could still put like a battery operated tea light in here and have a candle, but I'm actually thinking that this would make kind of a cool Ort jar for my desk, or even, anything. It would hold just about anything. It even has a gasket if I wanted to put candy in it or something. But I just felt like doing something that felt like Easter, and these little lambs had kind of an Eastery feel for me. And the lace that I used, this double-edged flower lace, I got at Hobby Lobby. It's decorative trim, and that's what it looks like on the spool. And I just folded it around the end of the tube, took it all the way around the perimeter, and stitched it on. You could glue it. I just don't glue things if I can help it, because I don't like gluing things that I've sewn. And so that was that. That was a finish and a fully finish. That kind of made up to me for taking so long to get the quilts done and not getting back to my Haid. So then the other thing that I pulled out and I worked on some last night was Satsuma Street's Pretty Little New York. And I still love this. I think this is beautiful. And I put in all of this color, the darker blue color, last night. It has a crease there, but I'm going up the, I don't know if that, let me see, Brooklyn Bridge. Now, so that is, I think that's One World Trade Center coming up right here. So that's the Brooklyn Bridge here, One World Trade Center. Down here is the New York Public Library, and then that over there with the Yep, that is the Chrysler Building over here with the diamonds. not diamonds, triangles. So I'm really enjoying that, and it's easy. I'm stitching it in hand. I'm not using a frame or anything, and I much prefer stitching in hand. Although on my bigger projects, and I do mostly big projects, I do use some type of a scroll rod or frame. I have to admit I've been trying to use Q-snaps, and I can't get used to Q-snaps. I wish I could. So that was my stitching for the last 2 weeks. Small finish, and then kind of a bigger finish, at least for my part, and got further on my Pretty Little New York. So that made me happy. And then I have to say that I did buy a little something. Wasn't much, and it might be the last thing I buy for a while, but I had to have the Dragons of Sumatra by Ink Circles. I just love these kind of designs, and when you read about it, it tells about the cloth and things that it was found on, and they use 36 count ancient linen by Picture This Plus in the model. And when I think of tapestries, and I know I'm not thinking of the right culture maybe, but I always think of red. The primary color is red, and I know the stitching on here is red. But what I want to do is take this Ruby Wine 18 count Aida, and I'm still trying to think. I think I may go to Silk for You and buy a floss color. But I'd like to do it in golds and greens and maybe a really deep blue, and some Krynic or some other sparkly add-in to do these pieces. I've had lots of thoughts about this design, and I'm a real dragon fan. If you watched anything on my craft channel, you'll see that I've done dragon's eyes and sculpted dragons, and I like dragons. So when I saw this chart, I had to have it, even though only, from what I can see, only has a couple of dragons in it. But that's okay. Who knows? Maybe I'll find more. So that was the extent of my haul for the last 2 weeks. I did have a question, and I'm sorry if it was Linda. Can't really remember the person's name. But she'd asked me, because I talked about making dolls, I think, in my last video. And she asked me if I'd ever made Raggedy Anns. And yes, I've made Raggedy Anns, and I've actually stitched the red yarn and made really tight Raggedy Ann hair. And my favorite Raggedy Anns I made, I think, were only about maybe 4 inches tall. And they were shelf sitter type. And their little legs ended in little black polymer clay shoes that I sculpted and baked onto their legs. So they were a lot of fun. And I tried to find one because I made lots of them. And I've either given them all away, or I've put them away someplace safe that's even safe from me, as usual. But anyway, yes, I enjoy making cloth dolls. I used to belong to a couple of cloth doll groups, and we did swaps. So we did a primitive Americana doll. Now this isn't a doll that I made. This is a doll that I got through a swap. And Suzanne, this is prim style coffee, tea dyed, it's got vanilla probably, and maybe some cinnamon in it for scent, although the scent is long gone on this doll. I've had it a very long time myself, where it could almost be prim now. Well, not really, not quite. But yeah, she usually sits on top of the mirror in my dining room and keeps watch over my, comings and goings from my dining room. So She's a real cutie. And she just has simple, like, yarn hair, and it's kind of like a two-twist, almost like a fingering weight. So she's got some bald spots, and she's really a cute rag doll. And I love her. She's great. And that, looking for my Raggedy Ann dolls kind of spurred me into looking into all my materials. Now I have boxes and boxes, containers and containers of fabric. And I have a huge box of fiberfill. I think you can get them at Walmart's. And it's not buffalo bat, because for a while all the rage for doll makers was buffalo bat because it had very high loft. And Vaughn is right, you always tear your batting apart before you stuff. And so I was going through some of my materials to see if I could find my stuff. And I do have a sewing box, kind of like the one Suzanne was showing. It's got the hinged out sides, and it's got covers that open up. And the ends are dovetailed, but it's not an antique, because my mother bought it for me for my birthday. My mother passed away in 2005. And she bought it for me for like my 30th birthday. Somewhere between my 30th and my 35th birthday. Anyway, 23 or 28 years ago. So it's on its way to becoming an antique, even though it does have metal hinges and things. It's not an antique from the early 1900s. It's a kind of a late 19th century modern becoming antique, or 20th century, sorry. So anyway, so I pulled out, and I don't think Garrett watches my videos, but maybe. I thought I would show you. I have some serious doll making supplies too. I have serious everything making supplies. But this is a box that I used to always pack up and take with me when I went to doll conventions, and it's a fairly good sized one. You know, your standard. And I have a couple of smaller ones too. The reason this one is this big is because doll making needles, and I have bigger ones, can be pretty, let's see, get a piece of paper. Excuse me. Doll making needles can be pretty serious things. So, and this is even a little bench, because you really push these things into fabric and batting and everything else. Because, well, you can sew arms and limbs and stuff on and make them jointed and all kinds of fun things. And then here's another one. It's not as long as this one, but it's heavier duty, it's thicker. And then there's one like these. Oop, I don't want to lose these. But if you look at the eye, they are kind of like tapestry needles. The eyes are pretty big, because not everyone uses the same materials. Like we use sinew and artificial sinew, which I do have, but it's in my beading supplies right now, I think. Well, this is artificial sinew. It says it's tended artificial bobbin, and it's white. And this I actually got someplace like Joann's, and you get it in the leather making section. And it's really tough and really strong. And I've also used, there used to be this really great website. It was called Sisters and Daughters, and you could get all kinds of doll making supplies there. But this is waxed upholstery thread. I'll use that to put on limbs and sew on heads, because you really want something strong. You don't want to use regular thread when you're making a doll to stand up to the test of time. And then I have, let's see, these are actually, and this was the website. This is this is Doll Maker's Journey. I think that one still exists. They have classes and everything. But this is assorted felting needles, and they'd send like pieces of paper that talk about the sizes and what felting needles are. So these are size 40s, and these are size 38s, and these are size 36. And primarily what I would use these for is if you're making a cloth doll, and say you didn't want to sew the hair into the head, you would take a felting needle. Open up this size 40. I think this is bigger than I usually use to do doll hair. Well, maybe not. But you can see this is what a felting needle looks like. And this would generally fit into a wooden knob or a plastic handle, which you can buy. And then this other end is very sharp and barbed. Very tiny barbs. And what you do is, instead of, like you can see this doll has a sewn in ridge where the yarn is laid down and sewn into the head. You would take your felting needle and you lay your fiber, whether it's, I mean, I have yak hair, and there's, merino wool, whatever you're using, and you would just put it on, and then you just jab this up and down, and it actually felts the fibers into the head. And you can make curly-headed dolls, or you could do it with wool yarn. The sky is the limit. If I had my other sewing box down that I was talking about, like Suzanne's, you would see that I have tons of different types of doll eyes too. Can never have too many things, right? So anyway, this is a wide eye needle pack, and I got this at Fire Mountain Gems. Have beading needles, because yes, you do bead on dolls. And then I have these John James Sharps, which are tiny needles, because there are tiny things. Oh, this is from the website I was talking about, and this is how their needles came. It was in a pretty book like this. And it was called a doll hair tool, felting needles, and it talks about beyond doll hair. So it gives you, doll making stuff used to always come with all this additional information. And then it has this little envelope here, and inside this envelope are my felting needles that I was using. So, I really need to get back to doll making. I truly love doll making. I truly love everything. I guess what can I say? But this box is full of needles. Different sizes. Like, I have packs of all different sizes. And then these are John James size 9 long darners. And then I have antique packs of needles. And then there's the John James beading needles. You should try those. Those are really nice beading needles too. And John James also has curved beading needles. Now, I have to say that if you're trying to bead and you don't, do the up and down motion, or you don't like it. Like when I sewed the back of the lamb's piece together, I put it together and I sewed it with a curved beading needle, because, let me see, I know there's one loose in here. Okay, So and there's curved sewing needles too. John James also has those, and they come in all different sizes. So you thread it just like any other needle. But then when you push it in, it automatically, in your motion, brings the point back up for you to grab. And depending on how big a stitch you want, it depends on how big of a needle you need, because you might want a shorter length if you want to make shorter curved stitches. So many things. And Dritz puts out soft sculpture doll needles that you can get at Joann's. Then there are Peacemakers. This is a Peacemaker beading needle, also good beading needles. But then there are Peacemaker doll sculpting needles, and I have a few packs of those. Let's see. I really have a lot of felting needles too. I used to do a lot of hair felting, and I don't know why I kept buying new needles, because I know I did. I wanted them in all of my sewing boxes because I had quite a few different kits. Like it kind of like cross stitching. You kit up a doll and you put a sewing kit together and a fabric along with the fabric and stuff, and go to town. Now this little hammer, because you never know when you're going to need some extra help if you're putting tacks or anything, pieces in. Oh, I'll show you these. Here is this, and there's a whole assortment of things. Now this is a loop turner, because a lot of times when you're making dolls, you actually have very little things. And these are kind of my specialty things, and they're all in this piece, but they didn't all come that way. Okay, drop frame. This is a loop turner, and if you look at it, it has like a latch hook on one end. So you'd hook this in, if you want to turn a tube right side out, you put this inside the tube, this latches on to the end of it, and then you can draw it backwards and turn your loop right side out, and it just has a loop on the other end. But that latch hook piece lets you turn like long skinny legs right side out. Or if you're making tubes for hair and you want to turn it right side out, you could do that. And then there's this lethal thing, which is a needle, but it's a double-ended needle. It has a very large eye right here, and this is a pointed needle end. So it's needle here, eye here, and needle down here. It's come in handy a few times, I will not lie. And then I just have a couple of more, 7-inch doll needles in there. I tell ya, I hate to say it, but when I die, I don't know what my kids are going to do. Good luck. Good luck to anybody. Let's see. Of course, then I have a covered button kit, because a lot of times you're going to do button joints. And you can do them on the outside of the doll to be decorative. That's always fun. And hemostats. Hemostats. That's the other way I grip things, to turn them right side out, like feet. When you have a doll that has a leg and a foot connected, you use the hemostat. Oh, clock is going to chime. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Clock finished chiming. I think I was talking about my hemostats. And I have all different sizes, from this big pair to a little tiny pair that's upstairs by my sewing machine. And I use these to turn doll parts right side out. And the edges are blunt, so they're also good for corner turning. And Vanna makes a good point. She talks about curved seams and how she clips into the curve, and that, or even on an external, you clip into it, and that allows it to not pucker when you stuff or you turn. And that's a very good tip. I do that on everything, and I also always use, I think they're over here, I always use my pinky shears to cut around the outside of my pattern. Because if I have a doll pattern or I'm drawing the head and the body or whatever, what I do is I take a pencil and I draw it on my fabric, and I have my fabric pinned together, both sides. Then I sew around it, leaving an opening to turn it right side out, like the main body. Say it's a doll. I don't know if this doll's arms are attached. It feels like they're separate. But sometimes you'll have a doll body and the arms are attached to the body as well as the head, and you're just sewing the legs on, or whatever combination. It's easier to sew around the pattern and then cut it out, and I cut it out with pinking shears, and then I'll clip into some of the pinked area around curves to give it a little more ease, and then I just have to turn it right side out. I also use some fray check sometimes around the seam if I know it's going to get some heavy duty action, and I let it dry before I turn it right side out. And speaking of turning, there are also, when you're a doll maker, you buy things, I guess. This one's been chewed, probably by a little dog or a cat, but these are tube turners, and so there are different sized tubes, and you can do this with a straw. You don't need to buy special things, but it's a, I don't know, 16 or 14 gauge wire. It's pretty heavy. And then I have different sized tubes that came in this set, and these go inside and help you turn hands and fingers right side out. But if I was going to be turning fingers right side out, then there's a 5-inch tiny brass tube finger turner set. I have a bodkin in here too. This was the Cloth Doll Supply, and I think they still exist, I'm not sure. But this is a 5-inch tiny turn it brass tool set. Let me get the bodkin out of there. And this works on the same premise, except I think so you've got tiny brass tubes, and then you just put then you have, these are pushers, and these just go inside the tubes and help you turn your doll fingers or toes right side out. They have tools for everything. You can get just about anything you're looking for. Let's see. And this is the piece that I took out of that package. And this is just a bodkin. And it's used for like pulling elastic through a casing. But you can use it for pretty much anything. For putting lace inside, ribbon inside a lace, keyholes, whatever, or pulling drawstrings through. Good for that too. And I could go on and on. So that's just to give you an idea of some of my doll making supplies. If anybody's interested, I can go into doll making more, because it is a form of stitching. It's sewing and stitching. And when you make the base of a doll, your possibilities are endless. You can create your cross stitching and add that onto a skirt flap and make it a needle keep, or anything. I mean, it's endless. And the last soft sculpture I did on my other channel was this rabbit. And I did a few videos showing how I took, and I made the rabbit. It has wire in the ears so that they hold their shape. Like I could put both of the ears up. I can turn them or put, one down and one up. It's just trim and a tube, and then she has bracelets. And if I lift her skirt up, she has a petticoat, and she has sandals that are also made. And then you can see where the doll sculpting needles come in, because I pulled thread through the foot to create the toes. And these eyes are hand sculpted polymer clay that I made myself. And her eyes have eyelids, and there's satin cording for the edge of her eyes. Her nose is embroidered, as is her mouth. And she has some sculpting that dents her head in to hold her eyes. And then it's all decoration. But that's where cross-stitch could be pulled in, because she could have a linen dress on with a cross-stitch tapestry or anything. And she is jointed. Her legs will come up so she can sit. And she is balanced enough to stand. And this is my own pattern. I created the white rabbit I don't know, 15 years ago. The business name I picked was Cambridge Gifts by Kelly, which is what my Facebook page is, Cambridge Gifts by Kelly. And this is White Rabbit and Company, a subdivision of Cambridge Gifts by Kelly. My problem is I could never sell these things. When I was working, people at work used to ask me to make them, like for Easter presents, because I used to do chocolate ones too, dark brown, and they would tell me what color range they would like, and then I would make them. But you can see like sequins and beads decorated, because this is a piece of lace. And it's all she's all beaded. She's very pretty. She's all fancy for her Easter parade. So I'll have her out front and center for Easter, which is April 18th. And my furnace came on, so my video just got loud. I hope this was enough light this time. This is another lamp. It's a floor lamp, but I moved my needle minders over here onto it so you could see. I have a small lamp on my desk over here, but I thought this would show you where I keep some of my needle minders. Anyway, that was a very long video and very little stitching. Actually, a whole lot of stitching, but not very many projects. I do have some plans, so maybe when I come back, although they're not carved in stone, I don't make plans. About 9 years ago, I came to the realization that one way you can be certain you make God laugh is you make plans. So I don't make any plans. I have ideas. So in my next video, maybe I'll talk about some of my plans for this month. Because I know Jessie Marie Does Stuff is doing a challenge for her birthday, her first time turning 29. I almost remember that. And I thought I might participate in that. And Mania's coming up, and I've never done Stitch Mania. I think I discovered Floss Tube right around the time of the last Mania, but not in time to join in. At least not in time to know what it really was. So I'm thinking this year I might do some form of it, because I have quite a few whips, but I don't have a ton of whips, so that's okay. And I want to do some smalls, because I do have wooden salad bowls. And I had put them out in my garage. And everybody talks about dough bowls, but I don't want anything that big. I mean, the main salad bowl is shallow and is a, bowl sized. But then I also have the little bowls that would be like a side salad for a meal, and they're wooden. So I thought I might make some stuff to go in those. So that's all to be determined. So anyway, oh, I'll change directions yet again. I did make myself a new journal, and this is it. And you can see it sparkle. And those are paper butterflies with, oh my goodness. Oh, it's over here. Glossy accents on it. And then inside, it's got lace trim on the back and the front. And this is just an envelope. It's a 4x6 envelope, I think. And it's a white one. It just opens up from the top. So all I did was line it with paper, and I left the flaps open so you can stick stuff into the envelope. You can't see it. And then I made little envelopes, and this is just one that opens up and you put stuff in, and then the flap just closes underneath the petals of the flower. So that was other things that took away from my stitching. And here's the center envelope, which is made out of a burlap paper, and that's the same thing. It's a flower with a slit in the actual envelope covered by a flower, and then the tab for the envelope just fits back behind the flower. So I had fun making this. It's a 3-hole pamphlet stitch journal. There are some tea-dyed papers in it, and some stamping and some tabs, and yeah, I like to do it all. Oh well. So if you've stuck with me this long, thank you very much. I truly appreciate it. This has been kind of a hodgepodge of all different kinds of things. I hope it's kept you company while you stitch. I hope it's maybe given you some ideas of new things to try. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer them. Just ask them in the comments below. And all that came from the question about whether or not I make Raggedy Anns. Anyway. Happy crafting. Keep it colorful. Keep on stitching. Until next time.